Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Wendigo Forest by C.A.King, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Being ordinary was anything other than easy, especially when they were anything but. Webs of lies seemingly formed overnight, making remaining in any single location an impossibility. Trying to glance at paths already forced from sight was even less feasible. That left only a single option, the route straight ahead. Moving forward and never peeking over stern shoulders was a great plan on paper. Unfortunately, in execution it lost some of its glamour. Somewhere along the way, moving had become second nature to breathing, whether for occupation or health. Clara's family simply complied, pulling up their roots only to attempt to replant them again in new soil. In reality, the process was merely running away from the past to hide from the future. For her, the change meant weeks of living out of boxes scattered about on dust bunny-covered floors. As for candles, they didn't always set the right mood, the same way food packed in cardboard takeout boxes wasn't as tasty in real life as actors made it seem in movies. It was raining. That was appropriate. The blanket of gray covering her offered little warmth, instead making a perfectly good summer day go to waste. She was tired of the weather. She was tired of propping her face up with the palm of one hand. Too bad there was nothing else to do. It had been days since her parents had even tried to find a radio station. They came and went too quickly, changing in sync with the addresses. The monotony of squeaking windshield wipers in dire need of a change was broken only by the occasional honk. Even the rhythmic pitter-patter of drops wasn't loud enough to overtake their song. Clara sighed, meaning to be heard. Voicing any more of an opinion would only lead to another lecture. She'd made her dislike of the situation well known already. As always, neither of her parents was budging. Their job called and their daughter jumped. It wasn't fair. For as long as she could remember, her family had been moving around, the tail being pinned on a stubborn mule. Clara glanced at a fallen sign, its wording hidden under overgrowth by the side of the road. She huffed under her breath. No one even bothered to fix it. That spoke volumes as to how pathetic her new home was. At least it had trees and lots of them, not that she'd see them anytime soon. Cautious, protective, vigilant. For the following few weeks, her family was bound to be ever watchful. History repeated itself time and again. It wasn't until they became complacent that things tended to go awry, resetting the cycle. It was Saturday already. That left 2 days to unpack as much as possible before starting at a new high school. Being homeschooled would have been much easier. No matter how determined she was, avoiding making connections with other teens always proved to be impossible. At some point or another, her guard always fell, leaving her in tears, packed and heading cross-country once more. This time they'd really done it, moving to a small place like Chance. The town, what there was of it, was made up of a maze of winding streets. Every single property seemed to back onto the edge of a large forest. The homes themselves were all varied, having been built in an era that had been all but forgotten. Vines of dark green ivy hid the fading color of their bricks, but couldn't mask their age entirely. Chance was, by all means, the definition of quaint and boring at the same time. A place people went to retire, quietly fading away with the sunset. A spot where no one would notice when they were gone. Wow. Clara's jaw dropped as the car rounded the circular drive in front of their new home. Unbelievable. Despite having the funds to live elaborately, the Fawn family, for the most part, chose to mainly reside in housing styles which were considered moderately expensive. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant, nothing that drew too much attention. Someone dropped the ball on that plan. The country house in front of them was twice the size they were accustomed to, with a yard as far as the eye could see, save for the outline of trees well off in the distance. "Wow is right," Mrs. Fawn exclaimed. "George, are you sure this is the correct address? How much grass do we have to cut? Do we even own a lawnmower?" "This is it," Mr. Fawn replied, taking in a deep breath out right after. In the pictures, the place seemed much smaller. I can't believe a property this size sold for so little. He tossed the keys in the air. Try the locks, Jenny. I'll call the real estate agent if they don't fit. Clara's mother, Jenny Fawn, was the strong one in the family, the pants wearer. She was out of the car and up the porch, waving at them before her father finished asking. Ah, they fit. I guess this place is ours after all. Her hand waved wildly back and forth above her head. Way to be discreet, Clara huffed. I guess we won't be staying here long. This place is bound to start talk. I bet there isn't a bigger house in the entire county. Is there any point to unpacking? The house comes with the job, her father answered nonchalantly. The people who completed the real estate transaction for us know what they are doing. Trust your pops. This will all work out in the end. You never know. This could turn out to be our forever home. You say that every time. Clara rolled her eyes, slamming the car door. The neck of a pink stuffed animal tightened in a hug. It was the same ritual she had done for years, although she had no clue why. Mr. Flufunny, the bunny, needed to approve of any place before she entered it. If nothing happened, it was safe. If, however, she ended up with a headache, something bad was bound to happen. Clara let out the breath she was holding, the exhale coming swift through her nostrils. 5 minutes had passed without the need for a single pain pill. As far as new homes went, this was as secure as they came, at least according to Mr. Flufunny. The cobblestone drive and path matched, leading from car to porch. Clara took the stone stairs slowly, following her mother's exact footsteps. One finger extended from her bunny hug, pushing the already slightly ajar door fully opened. She sneezed, dust meeting her sinuses head-on, accompanied by a side order of stale air. It's going to take some cleaning, Mrs. Fawn said, completely ignoring her daughter's wheezing. Even if the symptoms were overplayed, a mother needed to have a bit more concern for her child's health. What's with the furniture? Clara asked, still standing in the foyer. Where are we going to put all our things? Good question, her father answered, squeezing past with his arms full of luggage. The bags banged on the floor. The place was supposed to be completely empty. George scratched his head. The movers will be here tomorrow. We'll figure it out, Jenny Fawn replied. We always do. Right now, let's make sure everything works. Clara rolled her eyes. I'll take the upstairs. She pulled a plastic bag from her backpack after flicking the light switch several times. Having an emergency kit for moving day shouldn't have been a teen's responsibility. She'd been through enough to know packing one was essential, though. A flashlight in one hand and her stuffed bunny in the other made climbing to the unknown much easier. Everyone needed a security blanket, or two. Chapter 2. Labored breath and a fast heartbeat mingled with the sound of her own pounding feet. Somehow they moved swifter than usual with the nimbleness of animal hooves. There was no stopping, not for anything. Tree branches whipped at the skin on her face and arms, leaving scratches and cuts as battle scars. Her mind raced. Why was she running? Where was she running to? Who was she running from? Clouds parted, making way for celestial rays, tinging the world below in glimmering shades of pink. Her own personal rose-colored glasses. Even with an umbrella of leaves, the full moon made its presence known. Tall shadows formed to the left. Her body responded, veering right, legs picking up a tempo she'd never reached before. Even being chased, even with the world as frightening as it was, she'd never felt so free, so alive. Exercise wasn't at the top of her favorite things to do list. Sweating was the bane of her existence. A few drops of perspiration wasn't a problem, though. The more she ran, the harsher the wind beat against her face, hair flowing freely behind. Any moisture present was instantly swept away, left as a tribute to the land beneath her feet. Her eyes enlarged. She wasn't alone. A howl, a growl, she wasn't sure which, stopped her in her tracks. From full speed to complete standstill shouldn't have been possible. Still, it happened. A crack, a snap. Her ears twitched. Something was closing in. Sense in the air muddled. Fear, pride, sport, survival. A gun fired. Clara screamed, shooting up to a sitting position, grasping at her pajama top. It was soaked. She'd found all the sweat that had been missing in the dream. The lights flickered, buzzing as they warmed. "Are you okay?" Mrs. Fawn panted. Clara gasped. "I saw a mouse." Telling either of her parents about a nightmare was the last thing she was going to do. It was always the same. Every little thing required a visit to the shrink. A psychiatrist wasn't going to help. If her parents were honest with themselves, maybe they'd have understood moving around was the root of all her problems. Kids, teens, they all needed a solid foundation, fertile soil to grow from. A concrete base beneath her feet was the one thing missing from her life, and probably always would be. She wasn't sure exactly what her parents' job was or what it entailed, but it involved one government agency or another. Neither was forthwith about the details, and after years of trying, she knew better than to pester either of them about it. Instead, she pieced bits together herself, her own personal jigsaw puzzle. There were still quite a few pieces missing, but a picture was beginning to take form. The couple only worked in areas where strange and unusual occurrences were reported. They packed up and left the moment people started asking too many questions. In her eyes, that made the Fawns the investigators of the unknown part of unsolved cases, the X-Files of X-Files, so to speak. "Tsk," her mother huffed. "I told you to use one of the beds for tonight. Sleeping on the floor isn't healthy." Clara rolled her eyes, as if sleeping in a stranger's bed was. Who knew what actually happened on that mattress? The thought was sickening. "At least move to the couch," her mother pleaded, frowning. "It's not for long. We'll have your room set up exactly as always by the time you come home from your first day of school." Great. Clara rolled her eyes a second time the moment the lights went out. Someone else's couch was just as horrifying as the mattress. A good night's sleep was going to have to wait.